Well, welcome everyone to our podcast at Connected by Community, brought to you by Ballantyne Capital Advisors. I'm Brian Ballantyne, and I'm here with Cameron Cannon from our company, and we are joined today by Mr. Matt Scoggins from Carlton Mercedes. Matt, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump into this car business and what's going on. It's kind of crazy right now. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourself. Are you from the area? Are you new to the area?
I've been in Greenville for about 3 years now. From Charleston, Mount Pleasant specifically, where I grew up from second grade on. So.
Gotcha. So what brought you to the area?
Carlton Mercedes. So relocation for work.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
You married? Kids?
Not married, no kids. Don't want either one of those.
I understand. Yeah. You're going to keep your money, right?
Yes, sir. My sister's got enough kids for 3 families.
Yeah,
so.
Matt's the fun uncle. So me and Matt, just a little backstory for our audience, we're fairly good friends. He lives downtown Greenville, so we kind of run in the same circle. But apparently his kids he's got enough nieces and nephews to take care of. So he has a good time with that instead.
Keep you busy forever, right?
Yeah. Load them up with pounds of candy for Valentine's and glitter and glue and everything else to aggravate my sister.
All the fun, no responsibility, right?
Oh, yeah.
I hear you. So tell us, this is kind of an interesting time in the automobile market. And, whether it's Mercedes or some other dealer, you go up and down, there's very little inventory. What's going on out there?
Well, so everybody thinks that there is no inventory. I mean, you ride down Lawrence Road, there is no inventory out for display, but that's because the inventory that's coming in is already pre-sold. So dealers, us specifically, I mean, we're up over 10% year over year. So we're doing 10+% more business, but it's all pre-order. So we're ordered out 7 months. So if you wanted, say, a GLE right now, it's going to be a minimum of probably 7 months before we can even get you that car because everything that's coming in is already pre-sold.
Goodness. What do people do that have a wreck and need a car soon?
So what we've seen, our fixed operations, so parts and specifically crash parts, are up about 20% year over year. That's because insurance companies aren't totaling out cars. There's nothing to replace it with. So, in previous years, you had a $20,000 wreck, your car might be totaled. Now the insurance company is fixing it. So if you want an appointment at a body shop, they're 3 or 4 months out. So you're in a rental car from Enterprise or something like that, and you get in the rental car, and instead of having 20 or 30,000 miles on it as a max, it's probably got 40, 50, 60,000 miles on it because there are no cars to replace even the rental cars, and you're just in a loaner for 3 or 4 months until they fix your car.
I just learned something right away. So there's this domino effect. You got body shops, repair shops, rental places.
Yeah.
And this is going down the line. What other areas do you see this affecting?
So the other shift that we've seen, because there aren't any new cars for people that just want to go in and just make a purchase that day. So what people are doing in the meantime is they're fixing the car that they already have. So whereas before we would get a trade that, might need 4 tires, let's say, now that car comes in with brand new tires because they've had to fix that car up because they're keeping it an extra 6 to 7 months past when they thought they were going to keep it. Doing more oil changes, more maintenance, so brakes, rotors, obviously wipers, but oil changes. I mean, some people are keeping their car indefinitely because, they can't get something else. Prices are super, super high right now. New car prices have gone up slightly just as a matter of, normal course of business. They go up 1-2% every year, but used car prices are up 20% year over year.
So with that, do you see people who don't necessarily, quote, need a car or weren't going to, are they trading their car in or selling it to upgrade because taking time to wait the 7 months? Are you seeing some of that?
Yeah. So last year, one of the weird things that we saw was people who didn't need a car, didn't want a car, but saw either on the news or heard from their friends that, used car values were way up. They decided to take advantage of it, which was good. If you had negative equity in your car, you could get out of it and, not come out of pocket anything. It was bad because it increased demand for used cars, which then further drove up the demand for used cars, obviously increase in prices as well. I compare it to toilet paper. Everybody understands toilet paper. So if we can boil it down to the essence, something everybody understands, when the pandemic hit, there was no toilet paper. It's not because people don't have toilet paper in their house is that they thought there was going to be a shortage of it, which increased the shortage of it. And, everybody's limited to what they can get. So
it could just be boiling down to kind of people overreacting a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's a little overreaction. It's a lot of people taking advantage of it. I mean, if you had, you had a $40,000 car and you can get $45,000, $50,000 for it after driving it a year, I mean, you'd be almost foolish not to be able to, take advantage of that. The alternative though is what are you going to replace it with once you sell it? But
yeah, I think we're seeing that with the housing market as well. I mean, you have talked about that. I think if our wives would let us, we'd probably try to sell our houses, but then you'd have to replace it, wouldn't have anywhere to go. Yeah. How is that? Is that affecting the leases as well? I guess do y'all have inventory for that if they were to say sell their car to kind of get that positive equity out and then maybe get into a lease? Are you seeing that pick up, or is that kind of slim as well?
Absolutely. So the residuals, so that's what the car is going to be worth at the end of either 36 or say 48 months at the maturity of the lease. What we're seeing now is the residual was set 3 or 4 years ago. So that might be, a $50,000 car might have a $22,000, $25,000 residual on it, but the car is worth $30-something thousand. So what we're seeing is at the end of the lease, which, I mean, we might have seen one of these a month in 2019. We're seeing people at the end of a lease come in and buy their off-lease car and have equity in it. I mean, that never happened. I mean,
crazy concept.
Yeah. The whole purpose of a lease is to get the car back so the dealer can certify it and then resell it and then either, capture the financing on it or, do a CPO and keep that service business and then sell the lessee a brand new car or lease them a new car. So we're seeing less leasing now than we saw before and more financing. Previously, 2019, 2020, we were leasing 60+% of the cars that we were moving. Now that's come down. Obviously, interest rates being low has something to do with that. But people are in a better position to dispose of their car when they want to.
Yeah, great, crazy world we're living in right now.
Absolutely.
So if you're out 7 months, do you see some people just walk away and say, "Hey, I'm not going to do that. I'll just wait till things change," or are they just waiting?
We've seen some defection to other brands. Mercedes was always in the top 3. So BMW, Mercedes, and Lexus were normally the top 3 in terms of volume in the U.S. for luxury imports. What we've seen now is Tesla has moved up into the number 3 spot. Mercedes has moved down to the number 4 spot. Tesla's doing 40,000 plus cars a month right now. I don't know how many they're selling into Greenville. But we're definitely seeing, Tesla's new on the horizon, and people are taking advantage of that with, the electrification and charging stations being available. That's another option for people who can't get Mercedes. What we're doing for our customers is we're calling them, 7-8 months out to let them know, we need to go ahead and get you a car ordered, or you're not going to have one. You can't just come in and do a lease turn in and pick one out like you could, every other year that we've been in business.
So you got to be proactive, which is, got to be proactive.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that leads us into a little bit of another topic that I know me and Brian wanted to talk about with Tesla coming. I know, like you said, electrification is really, in the news a lot. People are getting excited. They're hearing about Elon Musk. I know Mercedes is coming out or has already come out with some electric vehicles, and I know that's kind of on their horizon. What do you, what's the deal with that? Are you excited about that? Kind of indifferent? How do you think that's going to affect Mercedes in general?
I think it's fantastic. So, we can wean ourselves off of, fossil fuels and get into an electric car. These electric cars, not only are they quiet, they're the same build quality of every other Mercedes that's ever been produced, state-of-the-art technology, more electronics inside, more gadgets to, fool with while you're inside the car. But, you got 10,000 plus charging stations that'll be online by 2025. Mercedes is going to have an electric vehicle in every model that we have by 2025. So a C-Class, E-Class, CLS, the G-Wagon's going to be electric. The GLS has got a coupe version that'll be coming out next year. We got an EQB that's coming out, so a 7-passenger. The GLB came out a year or so ago, but a nice, small, compact SUV, but still has 7 seats in it. That's electrified now. So you've got a family, that runs in-town errands or
to soccer practice,
or wherever. They've got a car that they can fit 7 people in now and never have to stop, and get gas. You can charge it at home.
I'm curious on this, and if I'm asking a dumb question, I'm sure others may have the same thing. Are those charging things universal? Or are they unique to Tesla, Mercedes, BMW, or whoever? Because that, when I go to gas, I just get gas, right?
Right.
Or how does that work?
That's a good question. So Tesla has its own charging network. So the chargers that we're using are through Electrify America, mostly charge point chargers. Those you can put an adapter on and charge a Tesla. You cannot charge a Mercedes off of a Tesla charger, even with an adapter at this time.
Okay.
But, there are plenty of charging stations. I mean, at the dealership, we've got 5. So, the Mercedes, and I'll give an example, the EQS, when it's running low, it's going to tell you where the next charging stations are. You can just click it, set a destination to it, and take you there. If it's in the Electrify America network, you've got free charging for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
On Mercedes, you've got maintenance covered for 2 years. You can literally drive coast to coast and not pay for fuel.
That's one thing I was going to ask. So I know on Teslas that sometimes you have to pay, sometimes you don't. How is it expensive? Is it almost like filling up? I guess, how does that work in terms of if you do go to a charging station after the 2-year period for Mercedes? Is that something you have to pay for? If so, I guess how does that work out in terms of paying for gas instead?
So we don't know what it's going to be in 2 years. Right now, Mercedes is absorbing all of that cost through their network and dealer partners. I expect that it'll probably be reduced, in 2 years, especially with more charging stations. You think supply comes up, you've got to decrease the price. But in terms of kilowatt hours in Greenville, it's 11 cents
Oh, wow.
an hour is what it costs the dealership for a customer to plug into the charger. Obviously, you've got to set fees because you don't want people to just store their car there. So you can set it up where after the charge is complete, 10 hours, 1 day, 2 days, it assesses a charge and it'll tell you that. Mercedes doesn't cover that, but for right now, at least in the interim, 2 years of free charging is pretty good.
Yeah.
How long do these things take to charge? I think that's been a challenge when I personally have looked at electric cars. Don't own one currently. Certainly open to the idea, but is the practicality of if I'm going from here to Charleston, when I had looked at it this a couple of years ago, I'd have to stop in Columbia, fill up or electrify, if you will, and even if it's a 20 or 30 minute rapid charge, and I'm on a business trip, I don't have time to do that. So, I need a gas powered car to do that. So maybe talk a little bit about the practicality. Is that going to improve with some of these things and technology?
Yeah. So being from Charleston, I can promise you can get to Charleston. These cars do about 350 miles on a single charge. You can set them to charge up to 100%. They recommend 80% just to maintain battery health and not wear the battery out cycling it so much. So there are 3 types of chargers. You've got one that you could plug into a 110 outlet that comes with the car, so you can do it anywhere. It's the slowest of the 3. There's a level 3 charger, which you can find at, say, Spinks. We've got one coming at the dealership. Those charge, you charge a whole car in about 40 minutes to 80%. So, and then there's a level 2 charger as well, which we've got a bunch of, which most people would have in their garage. Cost you about $600, less than $1,000 to install it. You can deduct it on your taxes, and 30% of the charger you can deduct as well. So you're really putting in a whole charging station and spending $600-700 round trip. That'll charge your car in just over 11 hours. The level 2 charger you get about 30 miles per hour charged. On the level 3 charger, so the big boy, if you will, you get about 8 miles per minute.
Okay.
So you can really juice it up. So a couple minutes at Spinks, if you just need to get around downtown Greenville, a couple minutes at Spinks, you've got 16 miles worth of charge in the battery.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
Gotcha.
So it's almost like stopping to get gas.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same concept. And then also too, with like what you're saying, the level 2 charger, you get that bad boy installed at your house. You sleep, let it charge overnight, and you're good to go for the next day, or even for a long trip, like you said, to Charleston. So they're really innovating.
The car will tell you exactly what it's doing. If there's any error or anything, there's a light, and when you open I call it the fuel filler flap, but the flap on the D post of the car or C post, you open that up, it's got lights in there. It'll tell you if there's any issue with it. It'll text you on your phone and let you know. Heat and cool the car for you, do all kinds of stuff while it's plugged in.
So I want to jump back to something we talked about earlier, this inventory thing that I didn't ask. When do you guys or when do Mercedes see this getting better? I mean, I know it's going to probably be more of a ramp than a cliff, but inventories, when do they return to more normal than what they are today?
I have no idea. I don't know that anybody really knows. They're making more cars than they've ever made. At least with Mercedes, I'm sure the other manufacturers are too, since Mercedes has moved to the 4th spot now. Last year, Q1, they were telling us that it was going to be, summer 2021. Then summer 2021 came, it was going to be into the 4th quarter, might be the 1st quarter. Well, we're here at the end of the 1st quarter in 2022, and they're telling us it might be another 6 months. So every time we get to that juncture, it's another 6 months. It's another 6 months. Personally, I feel like we've got at least another year of it before we're completely out of it. It's nice that we're going back to some sense of normalcy, with the masks and, COVID and everybody's opening back up. But, who knows? I mean, there's still demand there, and we've still got 7 months worth of no inventory to sell. So at a very minimum, just at Carlton, it's got to be 7 months or more before we're going to have sufficient inventory where it looks, at least, to the public, like dealerships have inventory and you can come in and,
Shop around.
Pick one of 80 to 100 cars, new cars that we've got on the ground, which is what we used to carry. Now we've got 8 or less, and 6 of them are sold.
So at least the late fall, perhaps longer. Yeah. That makes sense. And I'm assuming, that's a lot of the issues, whether it's demand, COVID, chip supply, the supply chain. There's a lot going into that is difficult to put your finger on one issue.
Oh yeah. No, it's not the result of monocausation for sure. COVID kind of started it. Everybody wanted it. Then, there's chip shortages. There's, factory shutdowns and stuff. But I assure you, Alabama, the Tuscaloosa plant is open for business. I mean, we're getting SUVs every day. They're just pre-sold.
Yep. Gotcha. The planning.
Yeah.
Plan ahead.
I mean, it's cool. I mean, if you were getting into it, if you were a new dealer, maybe you were undercapitalized, it'd be fantastic because you turn in your inventory, in a couple days, as opposed to what we would normally have would be a 60-day supply of cars. So you got $4 to $5 million tied up in a parking lot. Now you're flipping, $4 or $5 million every few days just in inventory.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is good. Customers seem to be happy. They're getting exactly what they want. Pre-pandemic, you would come in and there might be 5 GLSs sitting out there, and they've all got black interior. You want tan interior? Well, now you just custom order it. So everybody's getting a custom ordered car. They're getting exactly what they want. They don't, pay for features they won't ever use or say they won't ever use, and they can dial it in, get exactly what they want. So,
gotcha.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So one other kind of concept we hadn't talked about. What makes someone move to, whether it's Mercedes, BMW, Lexus, or Tesla, move to the luxury market? Is just they've made a little more money, they want it. What makes that first time buyer do that?
I think it's different for everybody. Growing up, we didn't have Mercedes. I mean, everybody drove either domestic or maybe a Honda or a Toyota in my family. Mercedes was always the pinnacle. I mean, that was. If you knew somebody with the Mercedes, they were the rich people. That's changed now. Mercedes, in probably 8-9 years ago, they came out with the CLA, which is a front-wheel drive car. It started at $29,000. You can't get a Honda Accord sometimes for $29,000. So what we're seeing is Mercedes is conquesting that customer, the young professional, in hopes of growing them into an S-Class or a GLS or some other $100,000 plus car at some point later in their career. Some do it for safety, some do it for the style. But when you can buy a Honda, you got a choice of a Honda and a Mercedes. I mean, if they both cost the same, why would you get a Honda?
Yeah.
You'd get a Mercedes. You're not getting an oil change every 3,000 miles. You're doing it every 10,000 miles. You got better resale value because the car is built to last. There are more Mercedes on the road that are 10 years old than Hondas, percentage-wise. And Mercedes, they call it planned permanence versus planned obsolescence. A lot of the other cars are made to die. 4 or 5 years, they run out of warranty. they go to a second owner, and that second owner may keep them, 3 or 4 years. Mercedes, you got Mercedes on the road with 1 million miles on them.
Yeah, I was gonna say personally, I have a 2012 Mercedes. I mean, it was one of my first cars, and I mean, it's got 130,000 miles on it. All I've done is change the oil, keep up with it, do the tires. I haven't had any problems. My mom has a newer Mercedes, and they drive it all over as well. And I've enjoyed it. It's kind of like with what you're saying. I've had a Honda as well. If I was going to spend $20,000 on a Honda versus a Mercedes, I mean, I've had both.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, they've both kept up well. But if I'm going to spend that money, I'm going to get the nicer interior, nicer touch screen, stuff like that, and haven't had any issues with it. So I mean, I can personally say I've seen that happen as well.
No, I think it's one of the best made cars in the world. Mercedes' mantra is the best or nothing. I'll say this too, and I'm not disparaging anybody else's product. What we have in 2022 is you can't buy a bad car, whether it's a Dodge, it's a Kia, it's a Hyundai. You can't buy a bad car anymore. It used to be, there were lemons, there were cars that Consumer Reports would, give, the black oval to, and it was just the kiss of death for that car. Those cars don't exist anymore. I mean,
Too much information out there.
way too much information. You price yourself out of the market. People wouldn't buy it. You wouldn't produce it. I mean, why would you bring that car to market? I mean,
Right.
In this
It'd be
type of
suicide
setting.
from
Yeah,
a business
yeah.
standpoint.
But you can't buy a bad car.
Right.
I do think Mercedes will last longer. I think the values speak for themselves. They hold up longer. The residual values and resale value, are pretty strong.
And I'm assuming that leads to repeat business.
It does.
Mercedes replacing with a Mercedes instead of going to a different brand.
That's what we hope for.
Yeah.
We hope for that.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, anything else going on in the market that we may haven't asked the right question or that people ought to know as they're shopping? Because this is a different environment, I think, for car buyers in general than they've ever found themselves
Right.
in.
So what I would say, and this would probably go for any business these days, labor is extremely short. So we're blessed that we've got the same number of employees that we went into COVID with. We're short because we're up 10 to 20% depending on which department we're talking about. Just be kind to the people that show up. It's hard to get people. Some people find other jobs. They don't want to work in that particular profession anymore. Other people, the skill isn't there because they just entered the workforce, say, as a technician. But, everybody that showed up, I promise you, is trying to accommodate your requests and get you in and out. But, it's a little difficult now getting parts. And, it's no fault of anybody at any business, but just be kind to people when you show up. You got, 10 to 15% more people coming in wanting the same fixed amount of resources, and you've got to then stretch it and accommodate everybody. It's a juggling act, and
I like that. I tell you, I guess I think about it mostly at restaurants and service industries because they have been just, hit really, really
Right.
hard with employment, but
Right.
it's everywhere.
Right.
Car dealership and service industries we deal with calling large corporations. And I think we all could use a little grace here and there. And I think now you don't want to certainly scare off good people because you want them to be there when you come back.
Right. No, that's the truth.
Yeah. I really agree.
Yes, sir.
What else do you have, Cameron? I think that's been very helpful for me.
I think that's it. One question that we always like to ask our guests is, what makes you tick? What makes you get up in the morning, and what makes you go?
I don't know. That's a pretty hard question to answer. I guess I do it for the employees more than anything else. I mean, we're a service business, even though we sell goods. My previous employer, we always joke that the 11th commandment was serve that customer, and that's what we're there to do. Give somebody a good experience. This representative of the brand that we carry, but take care of the customer, take care of your employee, and hopefully make it better for everybody else. But you got to have somebody there, and you got to be able to make decisions and accommodate the unusual stuff. So it's one thing that makes me tick. I mean, obviously, it's work. We do it for the money. But if you're in it for just the money, you probably won't be in it for very long. Is my experience too. So.
Absolutely. Well, it's been helpful, Matt. Thanks for coming and
Yes, sir.
sharing. And I guess for folks out there that wanted to get in contact with you or someone at your organization, how would they find you?
You can stop by. We're at 2446 Lawrence Road. You can go online at carltonmb.com. All of our inventory is online even before it arrives at the dealership. You can give us a call, 864-213-8000.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for having me.
Absolutely. And thanks, everyone, for joining us for this episode of Connected by Community. Until we see you again, go out and make our community great.